Hello, everyone. Welcome to our regional office hour. Today's topic is We Have Program Maps, Now What? We hope to answer many of your questions today on this important topic. We believe that colleges learn best from each other, and we hope our office hours are a chance for users to collaborate and problem solve. Our sessions are recorded and posted to our YouTube channel in case you want to review or share with others. I am Wendy Smith, Regional Coordinator, with my partner today, Stacy Teeters. We're lucky to have two perspectives today. From Palomar College, we welcome Wendy Nelson, Guided Pathways Pillar 1 lead and Professor of Media Studies, and Karan Huskey, a Palomar College counselor who is also the STEM Guided Pathways Coordinator, and the Guided Pathways leadership team from MiraCosta College, which includes Tao Ha, Zhenya Lindstrom, and Luke Lara. We're excited to have this community dialogue with you both. Let's start with Palomar College.
All right.
Wendy and Karan.
Thank you.
Can you, would you like to go ahead and start?
Absolutely. So our journey began back in spring of 2019. We started with really one of the first things we did with Guided Pathways, other than the plan, was started to create academic maps. And it was quite an interesting experience because we invited faculty in to create the maps. And, you know, I think in hindsight, maybe we should have done it differently. I think that we've gone back and forth on that, but it was a wonderful opportunity to educate our faculty of the experiences that our students go through, trying to figure out how they're going to take the classes that are, you know, part of our programs, and educate them about GE. A lot of work went in after the fact fixing the maps because there are a lot of problems with the map. So I guess that was the big thing. You know, should have we just had counselors create the maps? Maybe, but I think we got some buy-in from the faculty because they were creating them. At the same time, we were trying to figure out how once we had these maps, you know, how we were going to use metamajors to organize them. And so we did everything, you know, like I'm sure many of you did the card sort. We looked at COKI data. We did surveys of our community, our staff, faculty, and got student feedback. We reviewed metamajors from different colleges. We visited Bakersfield, Miami-Dade, Valencia community colleges. And we purchased the mapper tool before we had finalized our metamajors. So once we had the tool, though, it was kind of like, okay, the pressure's on. We need to get those metamajors, you know, finalized so we could start using it. And I think that was a good thing because it put the pressure on our team, but also faculty to just vote and be okay with it, knowing that we were probably going to make changes down the road. So I think that having the mapper tool really helped us. And then we launched the mapper on June 1st, 2020, which was crazy. It was a lot of work, but we really wanted to do it because of the pandemic and having, you know, our students not having access to the campus, that we thought it would be really useful for those new students that were coming to campus in the fall of this past fall of 2020. Stacy and Wendy asked for me to talk a little bit about the work involved. So once we had the tool, we already had the maps, but we had to fix a lot of the maps. And if you have questions about that, you know, Karan can probably answer those at the end too, because she did a ton of that work. There's a lot of, she had to create a lot of customized lists for all of our maps, for our electives and other GE areas. We had to create different maps. So most people did their AAs and transfer degrees, but then there was, you know, with the mapper tool, you can indicate CSU or UC. We now have some partnerships with other schools that now we're going to be able to put maps that will be connected directly, not just CSUSM, not just the CSUs, but some other colleges. So that additional work going into all of that. Really a really cool thing that Karan and her team came up with was to create maps for pathways that weren't that to specific colleges, or to, well, I think we just focused on the CSUSM at first, right, Karen? In terms of all the STEM maps, that's where you started with those pathways.
Yes, correct.
Can you just explain what those the pathways just real briefly, and then when we look at the mapper, I'll show them.
So we have pathways specifically from Palomar College to Cal State San Marcos for every major. So it has the major prep, and then if they accept an ADT, it also has the courses for the ADT and then the CSU GE.
Okay, and then I can show that when I click on, or when I take you guys to our mapper. We had to clean up our program outcomes. I noticed that there are some colleges that are using the mapper that aren't utilizing all of the different areas that of the mapper, but we jumped right in and tried to use all of the, I guess, I'll just call them areas. And so one of the areas is program outcomes. And at Palomar, I think we've embraced our course SLOs much more than we have our program outcomes. We've struggled with those over the years. So this was an opportunity for us to have some workshops. Right before the pandemic hit, we met with faculty to have them really work on their outcomes. These are going to be in the mapper. So that was a good thing to motivate them to say, you know, people are going to be looking at these. They're a great opportunity for marketing your programs. You know, what are students going to know and be able to do when they, you know, complete your program. So that was good. It took some work, and we're not quite there yet, but I think we increased the number of outcomes in our for our programs, and we improved those. They wrote them in ways that students could understand, which that wasn't the case prior to that. We also created videos for our degree and certificate programs. Not all of them, but many of them have videos that go with them. All of our CTE do. And then we added the mapper to the website, really thought through where should it go. We created a landing page. So, you know, creating the maps and buying the mapper was just this, you know, the beginning of the work, but it was well worth it once we launched it.
Wendy, I did get a question, and I think this is a good thing to bring up because we do have a diverse audience. From your perspective, even just what are program maps and how are they useful to students before we even get into the technology, which I think will also help to clarify.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we had all of our faculty attend workshops where they had to create maps for all of their degrees and certificates. And I think we kept having to, you know, sort of change the way we talked about them because we were calling them program maps. But they're really degree and certificate maps for the most part, right? So you have, a journalism transfer degree, which classes do students need to take and in what order so that they can complete those and be able to transfer to the school of their choice. And then, we had to include AB 705. I'm not a counselor, but we had to include AB 705. And that was good because we were able, when we did these workshops, we got to talk about that. You need to put English and math. I mean, it was really funny. At first, we had faculty that put all of their, discipline courses in like the first 2 semesters. It's like, no, students can't do that, right? They need to be taking these other courses. So it was interesting. Most of our faculty, were able to kind of see that they needed to spread them out. But it also got our faculty thinking about when they were offering the classes.
That we also, when we created the maps, we did specialized courses with a course that would double count for a major in general ed, which is nice for students so they can see that it double counts for that.
Yeah. I mean, our counselor, Karen's team, they did, spent a lot of time really thinking about what was best for students. And like I said, we'll show that in one moment. So I think this might go back to the question that you had asked, Stacy. So we were looking at the mapper as really an out-facing tool, way to market our programs if somebody came to the college. I don't know if that's how we're going to you know, if that's the same direction we're going to go in the future. I mean, that's sort of how it was sort of sold to us. So, you know, a place where if somebody says, oh, I wonder what Palomar offers, and, you know, just right when they're thinking about, you know, if they want to do attend Palomar and which degrees. But, you know, also for current students, before they meet a counselor or have a meeting with a counselor, they could get on a path and start their journey. We hope that the pathway mapper will help our students complete our degrees and certificates more efficiently by selecting, you know, the classes in the order that, you know, that they need to be taken. And, you know, it will also help us with enrollment as well, or I'm sorry, with class scheduling, help students see the bigger picture sooner. And it may allow counselors more time for personal and career counseling because, you know, students will have some of this information maybe prior to meeting with the counselor, or I know Karan has shared that, you know, when she shows the mapper to students when she's counseling with them, they're like, wow, this is awesome. You know, I can really, you know, see, you know, the path, and it makes it a little bit easier. But the class scheduling thing, we're just starting to sort of have those conversations on campus, and that, you know, okay, so if you say you're going to offer this class and, you know, in the fall or in the spring, these classes need to be offered them, right? So we haven't, you know, that we don't have a real formal process yet, but that's part of our enrollment management strategy going forward. So let me stop sharing for a moment, and I'm going to click on our mapper. So this is our landing page. Can everybody see it? Okay, great. And we're still, we have a lot of work to do here in terms of, you know, how we really, I've been looking at it. We've been looking at other colleges, and there's, I think, a lot of different ways to go about the whole mapper. But anyways, this is what we did quickly when we launched in June. So we have information about the pathways, and then some information about how to use the mapper. We've created a couple videos as well that are on our student services page. So let me go into humanities. So we still have to add our information, you know, sort of a brief description of the metamajors. We're working on that right now. So these are all of our degrees and certificates. So we have the AA degrees and the transfer degrees. And then these are CSU general education breadth. And then this is the high unit certificate, IGETC certificate of achievement, and then our other languages. And then these are our lower unit certificates. So we're still trying to figure out, is this confusing for students, and what do we need to do differently here? Because I think we might need to, especially in some of the other areas where we have a lot, you know, too many choices. Because I know Bakersfield, theirs is, I don't know if they have fewer programs than we do. I think they probably do, because Palomar's, we have so many. So those are those conversations we're still, you know, having. So I'm going to click on this one, Palomar's, the pathway to CSU SM literature and writing studies. So this is our transfer to Cal State San Marcos. So this is going to look differently, but the cool thing is that I think Wendy just told me that our 4 years to CSU SM are here. So I wanted to show this map. So these are the classes that you need to take at Palomar. As you can see, there's a drop down right here, and this is the, you know, this is the map just to Cal State San Marcos. So if you go down, I wonder where did you see that? Oh, where did you see that, Wendy? I wonder if this is a different map.
No, I think I made a mistake. I think I was reading term as like
Oh, fourth term. Okay.
Sorry about that. I thought it had gone
That's
through.
okay. Well, we just found out that their map is ready for us to upload, and I thought maybe it had happened. So that's where it will be. So right here in the CSU, you've probably seen this in Bakersfield if you've taken a look at it. You'll see the next 2 years. So I don't know if this is a good one to. So all of the courses, maybe Karen, do you want to just talk a little bit about the different colors and if I need to click on something, I can. I think you're probably better able to just explain this than me.
Would you want to go ahead, like, for example, in the second term, click on the arts?
Yes.
And it's really nice because the student can click on a class instead of having to go to the catalog separately. So go ahead and click on American News Days 105, and then it explains it.
Mm-hmm.
And then if a class, this one doesn't have as many examples, but if a class is used for major and general ed, then when the student clicks on it, it'll say so.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I don't know which one would be the best one to click on to
Yeah,
show
this
that.
particular major doesn't have as many.
Here,
But
you know, maybe should I go back?
Yeah, in that example, though, for Cal State San Marcos, the student has to have a foreign language requirement. And since it's specifically for Cal State San Marcos, I made the map with the foreign language, and that's where the student would double dip with the humanities in the third term. See the language proficiency?
Oh, there it is. Okay.
Yeah, that's just one example. We made them very custom if they could double dip at any time. This explains the whole language, came up with some terminology. They don't necessarily have to have all 3 semesters depending on what level they're at. So we describe it there.
I think that I just for those of you that are thinking about doing this, and if you do, and really you have to, it's really, really important to have counselors involved in every step of the journey, because there's so many things that we have in our map that we would not have had. And I think it's so much better for students. As you know, I was going to go to maybe business.
Or science
Can I
technology.
ask one quick question? I'm sorry.
Sure.
Can I ask one really quick question. I think at another meeting we're at with Guided Pathways, if we're correct on this mapping tool requires a curriculum management system, correct?
Yeah.
I think that's where we're at Los Grossman. We don't have an official CMS,
Yeah.
so we're like, can't quite map yet. But thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if it requires that, but we have Meta, so that's where we pulled it from.
But we did, I mean, in terms of the maps I did, they were all custom created. So I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure you could do it without it. It has to have, the catalog has to be linked to it. So I think you could do it without it. And also I wanted to let everybody know that if you wanted to meet with me privately, if you start doing the maps, I'm more than happy to do so. I met with somebody at Miramar for that. I wanted to show this map because you can see we have all the STEM majors for Cal State San Marcos.
Want me to
Wendy,
click
you
on?
want to click on biology?
Sure.
Yes, degree for transfer.
Okay, so yeah, this is the example of the page that almost all of ours. So it has a description here. Here is a video if we would have one, and then these are all of the program outcomes. And like I said, I'm sure most of you have seen this. Salary, growth, and careers. This pulls from ONET. A lot of our faculty are not happy with this section of the mapper, but we're going to use it for now. We could get rid of it. I did notice that I was looking at another school and they don't even include this block.
And then if you want to click on Chem 100. So this is where it ended. I had to create a custom course for this so the students would know that it also double counts for general education.
So it explains that. That's awesome.
I'd like to open the floor for just a moment for a couple of questions before we move on. I'm dying to hear more about this, and I have a million questions, but I see that Masa has his hand up.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't a question. It was a comment I wanted to share. So I've looked at Bakersfield once. It looks exactly like this. And the top portion, the labor marketing information. If you could scroll up
sure.
on the screen, please. Yeah, because I had a problem with my discipline because, it shows that the master's degree holders make more than PhDs, and it kind of like may send a wrong message. So I was like, if we were to do this on campus, it's for political science. That's how it was, at least on the Bakersfield side. I just wanted to share that so that those things could be something you might want to look out when you were to adopt this. I think it was significantly different between those two degrees. So less degree, you make more money, and why would you?
Right.
I mean,
Right.
money isn't always the reason to choose certain path, but I just thought it was interesting to observe that. I want to share.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Tony, you also have a hand up.
Yeah, I was wondering how many person hours and who put this all together. So, I mean, you get a software, but obviously all this information needs to be put in it. And my concern is, unlike Palomar, I'm in a multi-school district, a multi-college district. And I'm just wondering, any purchase like this is going to have to be district-wide. And I'm just wondering who is maintaining this information, who is entering this information, and how many, person hours do you anticipate? Because that's going to be all part of the, obviously the setup and the costs.
Yeah, that's so we're still trying to figure out exactly how we're going to institutionalize all of this. I mean, we have a plan. We'll update the maps once a year when our curriculum cycle is complete for that next year. But Karan, do you want to? I don't know if we've totally kept track of all of the hours. But the burden has mostly been, once we had the maps created, the burden has mostly been on the like a team of maybe 3 or 5 counselors, and Karan has done the majority of the work.
It definitely requires a counselor to have release time. Right, definitely.
Yeah.
I'd have to really sit down and calculate all the hours. I've been working on a grant. I've been doing a lot of mine with the grant hours. But I did sit down with somebody from Miramar and, gave her kind of an estimate for a new person doing this. To enter a map would probably be about 45 minutes. But as you get more experience with it, like I have a whole Word doc that I cut and paste and I multitask, and some of them you could do a lot quicker. And I'm more than happy to train somebody if they'd like that.
May I ask what the role of concentric sky was? I mean, could you have made this on your own version?
Well, this background, all the information that Wendy's sharing with the salary and all that kind of information, that comes from them.
You probably could. We did try to use, I'm trying to remember the tool that it starts with a C, but I can't remember it. Cognito.
Yeah.
I think it's $25 a month. But I don't think it was as user-friendly as this. I think this is going to help us in the long run. And I really do think it's useful for our students.
There's a lot of, for lack of a better term, things in the background that the system has. For example, there's course list, and it does have a lot in the system that you can work with.
And they are continuing to improve it.
Yeah, there's a lot in there, and it does require a team of people. For example, the course list, Krista did at Palomar.
She's our, I'm trying to remember what her title is.
BSN.
Yeah.
Yeah.
BSI, yeah. So, and you know what, we got into it when concentric sky was still kind of building it as we went. So I think it might be better and easier for people who adopt it now. We didn't even know exactly how we were going to connect. I don't even think they did to the CSU SMs when we first started that partnership, which really was scary. Because I thought, oh my gosh, when they make changes, we are not going to update it. It has to be, it has to be connected in a better way. All right. Should I move?
It's become kind of a common language for you in San Marcos to both be using this same tool.
Yes, right. So do you want me to talk a little bit about that, and then I can turn it over to the Cal State San Marcos connection? Or should we?
I would love to, but if
Time's
it's
up.
1 minute, yeah. We need to move on so that MiraCosta can talk about their work, but maybe we'll have time for questions at the end. In the meantime,
Perfect.
is it okay for people here to contact you if they have questions?
Nope, that would be just fine. Yeah,
Okay.
I will just say that the reason we got to be part of the CSC, the community college CSU pathways, is because we had concentric sky. So that was the one bonus. And it's been a great experience so far. So
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you so
Mhm.
much, Karan.
Great. So with that, we will transition to our other college being featured, MiraCosta and their team, Eugenia, Tal, and Luke, to share what, now that you have your program maps, or many of them, and you've selected your academic and career pathways, what has been the next step? Or, if we'd like to start off, maybe what's been the history of getting you even to this point where now you're working more with communication, building communities with students, and things of that nature?
Right. Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. My name is Luke Lara. I am the Guided Pathways Counseling Faculty Lead and have been for the last 3.5 years in this work at MiraCosta. I'm also the current Academic Senate President. But just, not to repeat anything that Palomar shared, because we do share a lot of the same issues and history in terms of getting this work off the ground. But there are some differences. And so I just wanted to point some of those things out. First of all, MiraCosta joined the Achieving the Dream network. Not trying to brag or anything, but in 2015, right, 6 years ago. And as part of that, if you know anything about the Achieving the Dream, is that they have 3 years that when you start off. First year is the year of inquiry, where we look at data. Second year is the year of design. So we start looking at all of the different things that may possibilities for interventions and approaches based on what we're finding, looking at the data. And we settled on guided pathways. This is in 2016, 2017. And so that's kind of where we started thinking about guided pathways and what they had. And so in 2017, 18, we brought together in the spring of 18 faculty as part of the spring convocation on College Day to get together and connect on, first of all, thinking about metamajors. How should we group disciplines? And then also to look at academic maps and start building that out and what that looks like. And what came about that was a great, a lot of folks had epiphanies that day about the importance of working together, and not in silos, but working together with counseling and instructional faculty around academic maps as a tool, but also to kind of understand kind of the bigger picture. If a discipline has these particular requirements and they haven't sat down to kind of look at what the student's journey might be through, even through their program, and then what does it mean to also take general education courses to be able to transfer to a four-year school. That's where we got to learn a lot from each other. And as a counselor myself, learning from the perspective of the faculty, kind of how they saw the sequencing of courses. And sometimes it was not congruent with all the advisories or even the prerequisites they had listed. And then in other cases, they realized that some courses may not be as necessary as they thought. And so from that, curriculum started to change, and we began this collaboration where a counseling faculty member who happened to be me at that time, working with faculty who, as we started promoting these maps, working with faculty to create the map, along with the other faculty lead who was an instructional lead for Guided Pathways at the time, and working with our Office of Instruction with a technical writer who took these maps and then formatted them in a way so that we could upload them into our system, which is PeopleSoft. And then we had our academic instruction services folks help us with the design and output onto the website. So that started about 4 years ago, and we've been on a journey adding more and more academic maps, starting first of all with ATDs and other degrees, and then moving on to certificates of achievement, and now adding certificates of proficiency. We hit about a little bit of a stalemate because our website was supposed to be updated at some point, like maybe 2 years ago, and then it got stalled, and because of that, everything was frozen and nothing could be updated, and so the maps were inaccurate and were displaying correctly, and there was nothing that anybody could do because we were in this process of updating the whole website, and that took longer than a whole year longer than what we expected, until this summer in 2020 we were able to. And it's an amazing it completes 180 from what the experience was, and so I'll have Zhenya share that. But I just wanted to add before we go into that we have institutionalized this process in that it is part of now our curriculum committee in the curriculum development process. At some point when a faculty member comes in to whether it's to modify a class, add a class, change a program, etc., they have to indicate whether that change will modify a map. If it does, then that initiates a conversation or an email to the counseling lead who would be me, to the technical writer, and so that we're working on that. It won't stop the process for the curriculum going forward, but it initiates this process for the map, and to make sure that it's on our radar to update it, make those changes at the appropriate time. If it's a new program, a new course, it won't be updated until July. If it's something that's something else that could be updated earlier, but we have a process now that we've begun this year starting to implement through that institutionalized process. So it's exciting. And so because of that, and because of the website, we have had more faculty in departments submitting maps at this time for more of the certificates and degrees, because before it was voluntary and before it wasn't as used. I can say that, initially and still now we're working on the use. It's been passively marketed, has been used very minimally by counselors. The belief right now is that if a student is meeting with a counselor, then this counselor is going to be creating a tailored education plan and not rely on the map, because the map is supposed to give a glimpse of the possibilities. At this point, our maps are not connected to scheduling, they're not connected to education plans at the moment. So there are a lot of issues with our 0.1 version, and we hope to move forward, and we might be able to answer that. But I'll let Zhenya go ahead and show her and kind of walk us through the website so you can see how it's integrated now.
Great. Thanks, Luke.
Hey, everyone. Can you all see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, so this is our landing page. And before I go into the maps, I also wanted to, and there was a little bit of a conversation already about labor market information and the wage information. And so at MiraCosta, we've committed to put that information in front of students before they even select their major. For us, having that career awareness and also having that long-term outlook and having the wage information and understanding the differences between getting a PhD and what that career track looks like versus a master's degree in a specific area and what that career track looks like was really important. So in our new redesigned sort of academics page, discovering career and salaries is front and center. And that is our career coach that leads directly into the career coach, and you could navigate assessment, careers. And we've done tons of mapping with this, and our counselors helped. We've sent information to our department chairs. So this has been validated campus-wide. We've worked with a transfer counselor and with a career counselor to make sure this alignments are good, because if you click on any of these, and I'm showing this because in Program Mapper, right, there is a section that kind of pulls from ONET. So this is a tool from MZ, and they show a lot of different information. And part of it shows our programs. So it aligns to all of our programs. So if you find a job that is of interest as a student, You could see what the demand is like. We could see the wage information, the employment outlook, but you could also see all of the programs that we offer that might be related to that occupation. So going back to the website, our maps are sort of integrated in where we're showing our pathways. So we give students an opportunity, again, kind of career coach here front and center again. We have a video introducing students, introducing our academic and career pathways to students and the concept of it. And then our 6 ACPs, and if you click on any one of them, we are providing, again, the summary of careers. We have student story, and then we show in programs of study that also have maps. So this is where our maps live, and it's a homegrown tool like Luke mentioned. So you're looking at business and technology and AA in AA accounting, right? Associate degree in accounting, and this is how it looks, right? For a student, we're also putting in the disclaimers for students so that they know that this plan is specifically for plan A, right? This is not plan B or plan C, so that the student knows upfront.
We did get a question from the chat, Virginia. Who was or were responsible for making all of this content available on the website?
There was a team that worked when we worked on the redesign of our website. The PIO led the work. Initially, the work was sponsored by the Strong Workforce Program, Regional Strong Workforce Program. I know multiple colleges have participated in this project at different stages. We were one of the first colleges to participate in it. But it was, we were, for example, that other page I was showing on academic, and kind of our academics page, it was a conversation. It didn't just happen. We really kind of, because the original draft that the consultants gave us, we did not like at all, because guided pathways kind of got lost in it. So we actually launched our academic and career pathways before the web redesign. So we had sort of the initial we determined, we had Enter the Path work group that kind of worked out the details of the website, that regional one, but this one required a work group and a broader conversation that PIO brought in through our governance committee in multiple points. So it took us a little while. It was a rocky start with the consultants, but it eventually turned out to be okay.
Can you go back to one of the maps? I just want to point out some other details. So just wanted to point out that there are notes under these courses. This is not very appealing to look at, to be honest. So we call it our 1.0 version. I mean, I think we wish we could have something more like the mapper. That's a little bit more visually appealing, but I can't remember the exact reasons, but the mapper does not quite work with some of the systems that we have in place. So we have had to go with this homegrown version, but I think that next steps would be to start looking at integrating more milestone information and capstone course information on here. Some of the things that were interesting as part of our discussions with faculty was that in the beginning is that you'll notice that general education courses, you'll see that there's just area E, and there's no list like the mapper had when you were showing it on Palomar site. There's no list there, but at the top of this plan, there's a link to our plan A, which has the categories. And this is because our faculty, at least in this 1.0 version, didn't want courses to compete with each other within those areas. So they didn't want specific courses lists for general education. So, so there were, this is based on, again, conversation with faculty. I think if we were to revisit a 2.0 version as we work towards that, it might look differently, given that this has evolved and faculty are now more aware of our ACPs and the importance of these academic maps.
Great. So we've noticed in talking in past conversations with you that you have some community and specific marketing around your academic and career pathways areas. So what's your thinking behind creating those particular communities on your campus?
I think one of the biggest questions that was asked, I'll start and then Luke can add, Luke and Tal can jump in, was how can we make these academic and career pathways meaningful for students? And that question came from PIO because they communicate with students all the time. So we started with developing some communications out in terms of what an ACP means, like the video, so that it's clear, it's understandable, it outlines some important points. We've developed some marketing materials, one-pagers, more informational materials that we had an ACP fair where students came and could attend multiple ACPs, go from table to table and talk to faculty. But this is an example of the materials that we've developed for each of our ACPs. I think one of the biggest pieces that we've done with our success teams that are organized by the academic and career pathways is developing, and especially since we were in the pandemic and trying to engage students in this online environment, we had a work group consisting of different success team members from different ACPs that worked on a template for our Canvas sites. So we have, now that they're all live and operational, we have Canvas sites for students. They receive announcements. We're working on automatic student enrollment for new students into these Canvas. We're almost there. We're just working on definition of that cohort. For now, students have to accept their invite to join these sites, but the information is organized for them in a kind of clear way. We starting with the prompts, why the ACP, right? If they're new to ACP, what it means. We announced some of the incentives that we have going on. There are announcements of different events that are happening in each of the ACPs. And then the modules are built for very easy sort of navigations where you can meet your ACP team electronically. You could see who is who on the team. We've integrated important milestones that we're working towards in each success team. So what is an education plan, which is one of our biggest goals for the success teams. So students can watch a video of what that is. We're providing links for them to schedule counseling appointments right here. So we sort of organized little informational site that we're hoping students are engaging with this information. So it all is relatively new as of now. So we're still kind of yet to assess the effectiveness of these Canvas sites. They are a lot of work. So to really keep them live and going, you need to send announcements and post new modules so that students are engaging with the information.
That's awesome. We've gotten a couple of comments or questions from the chat. And Gary brings this up around the Guide Pathways template does include to indicate and to display milestones and co-curricular activities. And I think your Canvas shell is really helping to highlight one of the methods of doing that around the ACP areas. Gary, any other things to add there? Because I think you brought that up when looking at the program maps specifically.
No additional comment there. I do like the idea of the Canvas container and kind of having the student invited to that by their ACP declaration. That's awesome. I've seen other models of that up north. But on the mapping display, I get where Luke's saying too, this is version 1.0, it's homegrown, it's going to take some time. So that's where I get kind of fearful, like, do I go with the mapper and try to invest in that and get the CMS rolling with that? Or do we go in with the homegrown? Do we tap into workforce monies and have somebody come in and take care of it? So that's the challenge we're going to have at Grossmont, I think.
We also got another question. Are you implementing the maps in your SIS, or is this just a tool to plan for incoming new students?
I believe they are incorporated, right, Luke? They are live. I'm not sure what the question is.
So it was me, I asked the question. So I just was kind of curious if you're using this in your student information system for planning coursework with counseling staff. So I just watched you say that you could do something in Canvas where the student could sign up and then they would be registered possibly in a class. I think that's kind of where I was going with the map. So right now at Southwestern, we're using Colleague and we're working on tracks and blocks, and we're implementing the guided pathways maps that have been created by our group into this function. So I just wondered if any other colleges are doing that.
Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing. I think at this time, we'll open it up for questions for all of our panelists. We've seen some really cool things happening with communicating now that those maps have been kind of decided, metamajors created at each of these institutions, how they're creating those communications, right, and how they're making community and meaningful interaction with students. So, and I know, Wendy, you were mentioning, talking maybe a little bit more too about the CSU San Marcos pipeline and work that you've been doing, if you would like to share that as well.
Sure. So like I had said, we got to be part of that project because we did have the concentric sky mapper, and we received some money to implement this partnership. So most of that money we just used to pay faculty to work on work with Cal State San Marcos faculty to make sure that the maps were aligned. So the project basically had us meeting, and we were supposed to pick at least 10 maps to start with that aligned. We had a couple of meetings where we did have faculty meet with Cal State San Marcos faculty and just with counselors. We still need to do, and so we're done at this point, sort of with the first step. We do have some areas that they're not aligned. And so I'm not exactly sure how we're going to move forward, where we still have some issues, where it will take a student, maybe 5 semesters at Palomar before they can transfer. So then, we can't really include them in this pathway. And then I guess we're going to be required to track the success and calculate on-path percentages for students entering the path at Palomar and completing at Cal State San Marcos. So I think that'll be really great if we can get some of that data and learn from that. So.
Yeah, that's huge. I think these intersegmental conversations are extremely exciting, right? Because we are one segment and stopping point along the student's educational and life journey. So yes, the fact that we're building these partnerships is extremely exciting. So thanks for sharing.
And we have a couple of majors where we had some good conversations. So if a student can enter at Cal State San Marcos and finish a degree in 4 years, why can't they enter at Palomar, do 2 and 2? We have to really grapple with that. Why are our requirements different? So.
Great. And that actually reminds me, I did want to share an example of like a 2+2 pathway using, seeing as that example wasn't fully loaded up yet for Palomar, but it's coming. That's a super exciting as well. Mm-hmm. This is an example from Bakersfield College and their program mapper. So kind of similar setup around having the program learning outcomes, information about this particular field. And this is for their kinesiology degree. And you'll see down here, they have the different options, right, depending on the pathway. But you'll see here are the courses at the local community college, BC. And then the student can see immediately what they would need to be taking at their next institution. So in this case, it's CSU Bakersfield, and it very clearly states. So we know we have a lot of students who unfortunately may never come in to see a counselor. They still have a pretty good chance of going and completing their degree by having these default maps in place. So just wanted to share that in case folks have not seen those examples already. Yeah, Gary.
Yeah, real quick, at Grossmont, obviously we feed San Diego State. So we'll be with the student and show them the SSU TAP, their transformation planner, just to give them that idea of the next two years. But it would be interesting to put that into the actual map so they get a visual right away from our end of it. And again, that's a good point someone brings up about why can't you do 2 years of community college and 2 at the 4 years instead of doing all 4 at the university, and show them how easily it can be done. I think there's a stigma out there. You're going to be stuck at the community college for 4 years. And then hopefully that's going away with AB 705, because before AB 705, yes, that could be the case for a lot of people doing a heavy major, just on the map sequence alone. But yeah, good stuff.
Great. Yeah, I'm totally there with you, Gary. And I have also attended Intersegmental Pathways Summit before, and there's just not room for every student to take their undergrad first 2 years in the CSU and the UC system. So we play a vital role in helping to maintain that balance and be a viable option for students. Other questions? Ooh, Carmen.
Hi, I had a quick question. So as Gary mentioned, we're in the process of trying to figure out what kind of platform or we're going to use, whether that's contracting out or internally. And one of the things that we're having discussions around right now is once we start collecting those degree maps, what is the most efficient way to collect them so that they're transferred efficiently into the actual website or the degree or the online platform. And so I just want to see, I don't know if this was something that was talked about. I came in a little bit late, but just what that process might have looked like so that you're not working twice as hard to collect it, figure out how to sort it, upload. Is that something that you worked with the third party or internally to figure out? I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think this is relevant for both of the panel teams as well.
I think Karan may have left because she might be able to answer this better than I. But like I said, we use Cognito, and that's where we built the maps, and that was very easy. But it was not a simple transfer from there. It did. We could pull it into Excel from that software, but it did still take some additional work. So I don't know if I have a great answer for you. We are trying to use Meta, and there is a place in Meta where you do your 4-semester sequencing. So now that's how we're trying to build the maps going forward for new programs, instead of having them and then have our counselors actually place all the GE in and just pull out the discipline specific courses.
I think she was just trying to ask if you had a specific template that you sent out to all the departments to get feedback.
Yes, and I'd be happy to share that with you and I can share you the one through Cognito, and I think that is like $10 or $20 a year. So it was very inexpensive. We're using it for our program review and planning as well. That's where we're collecting all of that. So I'd be happy to share that with you.
Wendy, you'll notice that like every single one of us from Grossmont like turned our cameras on, right? Because this is our huge question right now, is that, okay, we have some resources and some like really very paper oriented resources that we are planning on kind of springing on faculty and deans in the next, starting Monday. And right now, it's like all on paper, and it's like here, and we're calling it like a worksheet, right? But eventually we need to get those worksheets back from people. And our question is, how do we best do that? Do we just take everything that is like on a Word document and then, right, have to deal with it ourselves, and we're all
And
kind
you
of,
will- the Cognito
do
will
we
be
have
a good-
people enter information into a spreadsheet? Do we, like, how is the thing that has us kind of perplexed right now?
Yeah.
Did I re-ask Carmen? That was at the heart of Carmen's question. Like, Michael's laughing at me right now. I can see you, Michael.
Like I said, Cognito it's a great tool. And like I said, it downloads. That's why we chose it, because we thought that's what we were going to use. And we wanted to be able to go through the data, look for gateway courses or overlap. So we didn't end up doing that, but yeah, I think it'll be useful.
So is Cognito just like a database program that individuals enter data in? Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I'm happy. I can see if I can dig up what ours looks like and send it to you.
That'd be awesome.
Okay.
Thank you, Wendy.
Uh-huh.
Thank you so much.
Hate to cut this conversation short because this hour always goes by so very quickly. But just want to thank again our wonderful presenters from MiraCosta College, Virginia, Luke, Tao, and from Palomar, Wendy and Karan, for sharing all of this great information, these ideas and insights, and the real about some of the challenges and barriers you faced along the way. We're always trying to help to support and uplift the community. Just really quickly running through some of the resources that are available. We'll be sending these out, but we've also collected other examples from different colleges around metamajors and the websites and what they've been doing to share that information or communicate out, like those videos explaining what metamajors or program maps and things of that nature are. Some more examples as well as the community building aspects. So some colleges are already putting together offices and areas around their metamajor areas and offering even digital spaces for students to call into and make sure that they're getting support. So keep in mind, there is an upcoming webinar tomorrow from the CO around virtual advocacy town hall and diversity, equity, inclusion. But also keep in mind, we have 2 more sessions in our Guide Pathways office hour series for spring coming up on May 18th around that, from mapping to student-centered scheduling. And then the June 1st, my apologies, I didn't correct it on there, the home stretch planning for sustainability, where we'll be bringing in some panelists to really talk about what does this look like in the future, even after our quote unquote first round of funding is gone, and how do we continue to sustain this work? So with that, please check out all of this information. It is going to be living on our webpage and is also being uploaded to our YouTube as well. If you aren't already enrolled, make sure to sign up for our listserv, and then feel free to connect with us. So thank you for sticking around for a couple of minutes, and thank you again to our presenters. We hope to see you next month with even more colleagues. So thank you all.